Silence. Then the sound of the door crashing open. Wind and rain pour into the lodge like a living thing, violent, hungry. Sofia Winters stumbles through the doorway at 11:47 in the evening, her yellow waitress uniform torn at the shoulder, soaked through with November rain and something darker. Blood. Her left eye is swollen shut, purple and black, the skin around it split and weeping. When she tries to breathe, her ribs scream. 3 of them cracked. Maybe 4. She cannot remember how many times his fists found her, only that she ran, that she drove 2 hours through a blizzard with no destination, only the knowledge that he would kill her if he found her again. Her hands leave bloody handprints on the oak doorframe as she collapses against the wall. The fire crackles in the massive stone fireplace. Logs shift and settle, sending embers spiraling upward like dying stars. And then she sees her. A child. 7 years old, maybe 8, with dark curls that fall past her shoulders, sitting alone on the fur rug in front of the flames. Lily Moretti. She has been crying. Her small hands are folded in her lap, and tears streak her round face, silent and endless. She looks up at the sound of the door, at this broken stranger covered in blood, and she does not scream. She just stares. Sofia's maternal instinct is a blade that cuts through her own pain. She forgets her ribs. She forgets her swollen eye. She forgets everything except that this child is terrified and alone. She crawls across the floor on her hands and knees, leaving a trail of blood on the polished wood, and when she reaches the girl, she pulls her into her arms and whispers the only words that matter. "It's okay, baby. I've got you. You're safe now. I've got you." Lily's small body trembles against hers. She does not speak. She just breathes, shallow and frightened, but she does not pull away. They sit like that, locked together in front of the fire, 2 broken things finding refuge in each other, while the storm batters the windows and the night deepens around them. Neither knows who the other is. Neither knows what comes next. But in this moment, they are not alone. The sound comes at 2:14 in the morning. An engine. Then another. Then the heavy crunch of tires on gravel, multiple vehicles pulling up to the lodge at high speed. Doors slamming. Boots on stone. The front door explodes inward. 3 men in black tactical gear move through the entrance with weapons drawn, their movements precise, economical, the movements of men trained in violence. Carlo, tall and broad-shouldered with a scar running from his left eye to his jaw. Nino, darker, smaller, but with the coiled intensity of a man who has killed more people than he remembers. And then Matteo Moretti. 6 feet 1 inch tall. Muscular, built like the physical manifestation of danger. He wears a black cashmere coat that costs more than Sofia's annual rent, and beneath it, a tailored suit so perfectly cut it seems to have been poured onto his body. His hair is dark, slicked back from his forehead. His eyes are the color of storm clouds, and they are filled with the cold certainty of a man who has decided that someone is going to die tonight. He stops. Absolutely still. The other men stop behind him, guns still raised, expecting carnage, expecting the rival Castelliano family scattered across the floor in pieces. Instead they find this, a blonde woman, battered beyond recognition, her torn yellow uniform stained with blood, cradling Matteo's daughter in her arms like she is the most precious thing in the world. Lily's head lifts. Her tears have stopped. She looks at the 3 men in black, and then at the woman holding her, and then back at her father. "Papa," she says, and her voice is small and clear as a bell. "She saved me. When the loud men came, she made them go away. She held me when I was scared." This is not true. Sofia arrived long after the ambush, long after Matteo's men extracted Lily from the chaos and brought her to this lodge to hide. But in the mind of a 7-year-old child who has experienced terror, who sat alone by this fire for hours with no explanation and no comfort, the order of events has blurred. All she knows is that this woman came, and she held her, and the fear went away. Matteo's hand trembles on his weapon. Carlo and Nino exchange a look. In 15 years of working for Matteo Moretti, they have watched him do unspeakable things. They have watched him dismantle families, erase bloodlines, burn entire neighborhoods to ash. They have never, not once, seen his hand shake. He lowers his gun slowly. He walks forward, each step deliberate, each movement controlled. His eyes never leave Sofia's face. The swollen eye. The cut on her lip. The way she is shielding his daughter with her own body even now, even faced with 3 armed men emerging from the darkness. "Step away from the child," he says. His voice is deep and solid like an oath, but there is something in it that makes Carlo take a step back. Sofia does not move. Her arms tighten around Lily. "No," she says. The word comes out as barely a whisper, but it carries the weight of absolute certainty. "I will not let her go." For a moment, the entire world holds its breath. Then Matteo does something his lieutenants will remember for the rest of their lives. He kneels. He lowers himself to one knee, then both, until he is at eye level with his daughter. His expensive suit presses against the fur rug. His eyes, those dark, dangerous eyes, soften in a way that seems impossible. "Hello, my Lily," he says. "Papa," the child says, and she releases Sofia's neck. She reaches for her father, and Matteo gathers her into his arms, pulling her against his chest. He closes his eyes. For a moment, he is just a man holding his daughter. For a moment, the violence and the darkness fall away. But his eyes, when they open again, are fixed on Sofia. "Who are you?" he asks. Sofia sits back. The movement costs her everything. Pain blooms across her ribs like fire spreading through a building. She cannot hide it. Her face goes white, and she curls inward, trying to protect herself from herself. "My name is Sofia. Sofia Winters. I was." She cannot finish. The words won't come. "The door was locked," Matteo says. "How did you get inside?" "It wasn't locked," she whispers. "You left it open. Or someone did. I was driving. I saw lights. I needed." She swallows hard. "I needed somewhere safe." Carlo steps forward, his hand moving toward his weapon. But Matteo raises one hand, and Carlo stops. The gesture is subtle, but absolute. Matteo rises slowly, still holding Lily. The child's arms remain locked around his neck. His gaze moves across Sofia's destroyed face, down to her torn uniform, to the blood crusted in her blonde hair, to her hands, which are shaking so violently she has to grip them together to make them stop. "Carlo," he says. His voice is quiet. "Call Dr. Russo. Tell him we need him at the lodge. Now." "Boss," Carlo says, and there is a question in that single word. "Now," Matteo repeats. Carlo nods and steps away, pulling out his phone. His voice, when he speaks into the device, is low and urgent. "Dr. Russo? We need you. The lodge. Within the hour. Bring everything." Nino lowers his weapon completely. He moves toward the fireplace and adds another log to the flames. The fire roars back to life, and the shadows in the lodge shift and dance across the walls like ghosts. Matteo walks to the sofa and sits carefully, still cradling his daughter. Lily has already fallen asleep, her head on his shoulder, her small body finally releasing the terror it has held all night. For the first time since before the ambush, she is breathing normally. "Sofia," he says, and the way he says her name is like he is trying to memorize it, like it is a word he will need to remember. "Can you walk?" She nods, even though she cannot. She pushes herself to her feet, and the world tilts. Her vision narrows to a pinpoint. She feels herself falling, and then strong hands catch her, and the last thing she hears before the darkness takes her is his voice, steady and certain. "I have you," he says. "You are not alone anymore." The lodge door is still open. The wind and rain continue their assault, but inside, near the fire, 2 broken people have found shelter. Before the scene continues further, drop a like if this story hits you. Share it with someone who needs to hear it and subscribe so you don't miss what's coming tomorrow. Now let us go back. Back 3 days earlier to Philadelphia, to understand how Sofia Winters, a woman with $2 to her name and a daughter dying of a disease, became desperate enough to run into a November blizzard. Back to the beginning. The first sound you hear when you enter the Silver Bell Diner at 5 in the morning is the sizzle of bacon on the griddle. The smell is thick and greasy, hanging heavy in the fluorescent-lit space like a living thing. Sofia Winters stands behind the counter, her yellow uniform faded from 1,000 washes, her blonde hair pulled back so tightly it makes her scalp ache. She is 27 years old, but exhaustion and hunger have carved decades into her face. There are dark circles under her eyes that no amount of sleep could erase because she does not sleep. Sleep is a luxury she cannot afford. On the counter in front of her is a register drawer. She counts the cash with the precision of someone who knows that every dollar represents a day of her daughter's life. $23.17. This is what she has earned in tips over the past 3 days. This is what stands between her daughter and a final notice from St. Mary's Hospital. Her phone buzzes in her pocket. A text from her mother, who is watching her 7-year-old daughter, Gemma, while Sofia works. She's asking for you. She says her chest hurts again. Sofia's hand still. For a moment, she cannot breathe. Then she shoves the cash into her apron and walks into the bathroom, locks the door, and allows herself exactly 1 minute to fall apart. The tears come hot and fast, and she covers her mouth so no one will hear her. She has learned to cry silently. She has learned to scream without making a sound. 1 minute passes. She washes her face with cold water. She counts her breaths until her heartbeat returns to normal. She checks her reflection in the mirror and lies to herself that she is strong enough for this. That she is brave enough for this. That there is any possible world in which her daughter survives. When she emerges, the morning rush has started. A trucker in a baseball cap waves his empty coffee cup. An elderly woman taps her fork against her empty plate. The diner fills with the noise of conversation and the clattering of dishes, and Sofia moves through it all like a ghost, refilling cups, clearing plates, her mind already 3 days ahead to the notice that arrived in her mailbox yesterday morning. The eviction notice. 12 days until she and Gemma are homeless. 12 days. But that is not the worst part. The worst part is that Gemma needs heart surgery. The surgery costs $22,000. Insurance will not cover it. The hospital has given her 2 weeks to find the money, or they will refuse to schedule the procedure. And without the surgery, Gemma will die. Her daughter's heart is failing, and there is nothing Sofia can do about it. She has exactly $2 left in the world after paying for this morning's shift. $2. A man enters the diner at 6:47. Sofia knows him immediately. Tyler Brennan. Her ex-boyfriend. The father of her daughter, though he has never acknowledged this and she has never demanded it. He is 31 years old, with pale blue eyes and blonde hair going grey at the temples. He wears expensive clothes, but there is something rotten in him that no amount of money can hide. He sits in the booth by the window, and he smiles when he sees her. "Sofia, baby," he says. His voice is smooth and practiced, like a knife wrapped in silk. "I've been looking for you." "I don't want to talk to you, Tyler." That's not very friendly. He leans back against the vinyl seat, and his eyes move across her body in a way that makes her skin crawl. "I heard you've had some financial troubles. I might be able to help." "I don't want your help." "Everyone wants my help," he says. He pulls out his phone and sets it on the table where she can see the screen. There is a video playing. She does not recognize herself at first. Then she understands. It is her. From last month. The things he did to her are visible in perfect clarity. This has already been sent to your workplace, by the way. To your landlord. To several employers I found in your old job applications. Sofia's legs feel weak. She grabs the edge of the counter to steady herself. "What do you want?" Her voice comes out as barely a whisper. "I want you to come back," he says simply. "I want to take care of you and your daughter. I want you to understand that running from me will only make things worse." The door to the diner opens. A woman enters, and even in her devastated state, Sofia recognizes her. Margaret Harrington. Wealthy socialite. Known in Philadelphia's elite circles as a woman who collects secrets like other women collect diamonds. She moves toward Tyler's booth with the confidence of someone who owns the ground she walks on. "Ah," Tyler says, and his smile widens. "Sofia, I believe you know Margaret. She and I have been discussing how we might help you understand the error of your ways." Margaret sits across from Tyler, her designer handbag placed carefully on the table. She is 58 years old, with platinum blonde hair and the kind of face that has been surgically maintained. But her eyes are cold. Her eyes are the color of winter. "Ms. Winters," Margaret says, and her voice drips with artificial sweetness. "I understand you have a sick child and no means to pay for treatment." How tragic. Sofia cannot speak. She cannot move. "I've offered Tyler my assistance," Margaret continues. "In fact, I've hired him to help me collect debts from certain unfortunate individuals in our city. And I think it would be quite profitable if he were to collect from you. The public display of your indiscretions would be quite beneficial to our enterprise. Don't you think?" Tyler laughs. It is a sound like breaking glass. "We're going to destroy you," he says simply. "Not because I hate you, but because I can. And because you refuse to love me the way I deserve to be loved." Sofia turns and walks away. She does not run. She does not cry. She simply walks to the back of the diner, removes her apron, and leaves. She does not care about the shift she is abandoning. She does not care about the tips she is leaving behind. All she cares about is getting to her daughter. All she cares about is holding Gemma one more time before the world burns down around them. She does not know, as she drives toward her mother's house, that forces are already in motion to destroy her completely. She does not know that Margaret Harrington's reach extends far beyond the city's elite, that her connections are darker and more dangerous than anyone suspects. She does not know that in 10 days, Tyler Brennan will track her down with the precision of a hunter stalking prey. She only knows that she has to survive the next 2 weeks. She has to find $22,000. She has to keep her daughter alive. Behind her, Philadelphia glitters in the early morning light, oblivious to the small catastrophe unfolding in its midst. The alarm screams at 6:13 a.m. in the darkness of Sofia Winters' one-bedroom apartment on Catherine Street in South Philadelphia. It is not a sound that wakes her gently. It is a blade, cutting through the thin walls and thinner sleep she has managed to steal. She does not want to move. Her body aches in 17 different places, and her hands are still raw from yesterday's shift. But she moves anyway. The ceiling above her bed is cracked like the map of some broken country. Water stains bloom across the plaster in shapes that almost look like flowers if she squints hard enough. Almost. She sits up slowly, and the mattress springs sing their familiar song of protest. The room is cold. November has slipped through the window frame like a ghost that cannot be locked out, and her breath makes small clouds in the thin light. On the nightstand, next to a bottle of aspirin with 3 tablets remaining, sits her wallet. It is purple. It was a Christmas gift from her mother 5 years ago, when things were different. When she was still married to a man who promised forever and delivered only bruises. The wallet is worn now, the corners soft from being held so many times, the leather creased like the face of someone who has worried for too long. She opens it. 2 crumpled dollar bills stare back at her. That is everything. $2 and a library card that expired 8 months ago. She touches the bills with one finger, as if they might vanish if she does not keep contact with them. As if her attention alone is what holds them in existence. From the other room, the cough comes. It is not a small cough. It is not the cough of a 6-year-old child who has caught a cold. It is deep and wet and rattling, like something inside her daughter's chest is breaking apart one piece at a time. Sofia's stomach clenches. She has learned to recognize the sound of that cough the way soldiers learn to recognize incoming fire. The mitral valve. The hole in the heart, literally, medically, a hole the size of a pencil eraser that doctors said needed to be repaired before the damage becomes irreversible. Before it becomes fatal. She moves to the doorway of the second room. Emma is still sleeping, but her small body is rigid with the effort of breathing. 7 years old, but looking at her, Sofia sometimes sees a small animal caught in a trap, pulling against the metal with no understanding that the trap itself is inside her own body. The surgery date is scheduled for December 3rd. The surgery cost is $22,000. The deposit required before the hospital will even reserve the operating room is also $22,000. This is the mathematics that has replaced sleep. On the kitchen counter, taped to the refrigerator with red masking tape, is the eviction notice. The letters are printed in bold font that screams without sound, notice of eviction. 12 days until forced removal. Property for 27, Catherine Street. The number 12 is underlined 3 times. She showers in water that comes out the color of rust at first, then gradually turns clear. The shower curtain has mildew spreading across its plastic-like continent on a map she never wanted to travel. She counts the tiles on the bathroom wall while the water runs over her body, a practice she has developed to keep from crying. There are 43 tiles. She has counted them so many times that she no longer needs to actually count. The number is just there, the way her own heartbeat is just there. Automatic. Unavoidable. She dresses in the uniform that smells like it has been worn for 3 days straight. Polyester, faded red, with a name tag that reads Sofia in letters so worn they are barely visible anymore. The shoes are orthopedic, purchased 5 years ago at a clearance price, and they have molded themselves to the shape of her feet so completely that walking in anything else now feels like walking in lies. At the corner deli, she buys a coffee for 75 cents and a bagel for 90 cents. She eats half the bagel and puts the other half in a plastic bag for Emma's lunch. The coffee she saves for the walk to the diner. It is the only warm thing she will hold all morning. Rose's Diner sits on Market Street like a relic from some other era, some America that still believed in simple things and fair wages. The exterior is painted a shade of pink that was probably meant to be cheerful and has instead become sad, like all attempts at cheerfulness made from desperation. The neon sign in the window flickers. It has flickered for 3 years. The owner keeps saying he will fix it. He keeps not fixing it. She clocks in at 9:22 a.m. Her shift starts at 10:53 a.m. The fluorescent lights buzz overhead like insects trapped in plastic casings. The floor is a checkerboard of black and white tiles, and decades of foot traffic have worn the pattern almost completely smooth. The smell of burnt coffee and bacon grease and something that might be mold has been baked into the wall so thoroughly that she is not sure the smell could be removed even if someone tried. She has stopped noticing it most days. Today she notices it. Today, everything seems sharper, like the world has raised its volume specifically to torment her. By 11:56 a.m., she has already refilled coffee cups 47 times. She has smiled at a businessman who called her sweetheart in a tone that was not affectionate. She has walked through the swinging kitchen door with a limp because her right ankle is swollen from standing for 10 hours yesterday. She has thought about Emma exactly 216 times. She keeps count. The counting gives her something to do besides break. A party of 4 sits in booth 7. They are wearing the kind of clothes that suggest they have paid rent before without needing to choose between rent and medicine. One of them, a woman with professionally highlighted hair the color of corn silk, snaps her fingers at Sofia. Actually snaps her fingers. As if Sofia is a dog. As if the sound of fingers is a sufficient form of human communication. Sofia approaches the table. Her smile is a perfectly maintained sculpture made of fiberglass. It does not move with her real face. It simply exists above her real face, permanent and false. We ordered our food 45 minutes ago, the woman says. She does not look at Sofia. She is examining her own reflection in her phone. We have a 1 o'clock reservation somewhere. Do you understand how rude it is to waste our time? Your food is coming now, Sofia says. Her voice is steady. This is a miracle. Her voice is very steady. I will check on it immediately. The truth is that their food arrived in the kitchen 8 minutes ago, but the cook burned the eggs on the first order and had to start again. Sofia does not mention this. The customer does not want truth. The customer wants blame channeled toward someone powerless to defend herself. She brings the food. The woman tastes it once and declares it cold. It is not cold. Sofia has watched it come out of the kitchen. She has watched the sweat form on the plate from the heat of the food itself. But she removes the plate anyway, because this is her job. Her job is to accept blame for things she did not do and smile while doing it. By 3:02 p.m., the lunch rush has ended. The place empties out. Sofia wipes tables. She wipes the counter. She wipes the booth seats. The motion is meditative, almost prayer-like, if prayer were something she still believed in. She stopped believing in prayer somewhere between her first miscarriage and her second. She stopped believing in a lot of things. Now she only believes in the things she can see and count and hold in her hands. At 5:44 p.m., the dinner shift begins. It is a Friday. Fridays are supposed to be better for tips, but Sofia has learned that supposed to is just another way of saying not actual. The dinner crowd is different from the lunch crowd. They are tired. They are hungry. They are sometimes kind, but the kindness is thin, spread so thinly across so many demands that it rarely reaches anyone working below the line of the counter. By 11:16 p.m., when the last customer has left and Sofia has counted the bills and coins in her apron pocket, she has made $47.33. Before taxes. After taxes, it will be closer to $39. She counts it for times in the back room, making sure she did not miscount. Making sure the numbers did not somehow rearrange themselves into something better. They do not. $39 is all there is. She takes the bus home. The bus smells like wet fabric and time running out. Through the window, Philadelphia passes by in a blur of closed storefronts and streetlights trying to hold back the darkness. November rain has begun to fall. It is not heavy rain. It is the kind of rain that seems almost apologetic, like it knows it should not be here but has nowhere else to go. When she reaches her building, she sees him. Tyler Brennan is standing under the streetlight outside her apartment door. He is 6'2". His neck is covered in tattoos that climb up toward his jawline like some dark vine growing through the skin itself. His eyes are the color of old coffee, and they are looking at her with an intensity that makes her blood pressure spike the way a seismograph spikes when the earth decides to break. She stops walking. She does not move toward him. She does not run. She simply stands, one foot in front of the other, her wet hair clinging to her face. "Hey, baby," he says. His voice is smooth. His voice is dangerous. These are not contradictory things. "I've been looking for you." "Go away, Tyler." That's not very nice. He moves toward her. His movements are casual, designed to seem non-threatening, which is precisely what makes them threatening. A predator does not rush. A predator approaches slowly. "After everything we had, you don't even want to talk to me." "We had nothing. We were done." He reaches out and grabs her arm. His fingers dig into the exact spot where last week's bruises are still fading, and the pain is immediate and white and total. She pulls away. Her wet jacket slides through his grip. She runs. She does not look behind her. She runs toward the building door, fumbles with her keys, gets inside, unlocks the first deadbolt, then the second, then the third. Through the peephole, she watches him. He stands outside in the rain, not moving, just staring at the door. He is smiling. He is completely, peacefully smiling. She picks up the phone and dials 911. The dispatcher's voice is bored and tired. "What is your emergency?" "There is a man outside my building. He is threatening me." He is my ex-boyfriend and he is violent. Please send someone. Silence. Then, is he currently in your home? No. He is outside. Is he actively attacking anything? Not right now, but he. Then we have no units available. You can file a report online, or if he enters your home, call back and we can send someone. The line goes dead. She dials again. It is a different dispatcher. She goes through the explanation again. The response is the same. No units available. Call back if it escalates. Sofia goes to the window and looks out. Tyler is gone. For a moment, she almost believes he was a hallucination brought on by exhaustion and desperation. But there is nothing hallucinated about the fear in her chest, which is very real, very present, and growing like something alive. She goes to Emma's room. Her daughter is sleeping, that small broken body finally at rest. Sofia sits beside her and watches her breathe. This is what fills her with both peace and terror in equal measure. This small person, this daughter, this light that came out of darkness, is everything. And everything is fragile. Everything can be taken away. At midnight, Sofia sits at the kitchen table with her laptop. The screen is cracked across one corner, but it still works. She searches for safe houses in Philadelphia. Full capacity. Full capacity. Full capacity. 3-month waiting lists. 6-month waiting lists. Income requirements that are higher than her income. She searches for women's shelters. The same results, again and again and again. She searches for police protection orders. Reads the fine print. Sees that her exes with connections to the police force have a habit of making these orders disappear. She searches for loans. Bad credit from the eviction notices and the medical debt. No one will lend to her. She searches for payment plans for the surgery. The hospital will not break down the $22,000. It is a number that stands alone, a mountain that cannot be climbed in increments. At 2:51 a.m., she closes the laptop. The cursor on the screen blinks at her like it is waiting for a question it knows she cannot answer. She does not sleep. She simply sits in the darkness, her hands folded on the table in front of her, and she waits for morning to come. The mountain lodge sits silent in the darkness, 3 hours north of Philadelphia, where the Pocono peaks cut jagged shapes against a starless sky. Matteo Moretti stands by the massive stone fireplace, his 7-year-old daughter Lily beside him, teaching her how to stack firewood with the precision he applies to everything in his life. He is 34 years old, tall and broad-shouldered, his dark-tailored suit replaced tonight with a charcoal sweater and slacks. A thin scar runs from his left eye to his cheekbone, a permanent map of violence, but his hands as they guide Lily's small fingers are gentle. Patient. Almost tender. Like this, he says, his voice low and solid like an oath. Angle them so the air moves through. Fire needs breath. Lily nods, concentrating, her tongue poking out slightly. This is her favorite place in the world. Here, in this refuge hidden deep in the forest, her father is not the man the newspapers call him. Here, he is simply Papa. Outside, the November wind begins to move through the trees like something alive and hungry. Carlo and Nino patrol the perimeter in dark coats, their breath visible in the cold air. The security is absolute. No one knows about this place. No one is supposed to. At 9:22 p.m., headlights cut through the tree line. Matteo's body goes rigid. He does not look away from Lily, but every muscle in him has turned to stone. The sound of car doors slamming echoes across the snow. Not one vehicle. Multiple. His hand moves to the pistol tucked at his ribs. Get Lily to the basement. Now, he says quietly to Carlo, who appears like a shadow in the doorway. Go. Carlo runs to Lily and scoops her up, but the child twists in his arms, reaching for her father. Papa. The first window explodes inward. Glass sprays across the wooden floor like diamonds. Gunfire follows, rapid and relentless, shattering the second window, splintering the door frame. Matteo draws his weapon and moves toward the kitchen, laying down covering fire as Carlo rushes Lily through the corridor toward the basement stairs. In the chaos and noise, in the thunder of gunshots and the screaming of the wind and the sound of Carlo's boots pounding against hardwood, Lily slips from Carlo's grip. She is small and fast and terrified, and she runs not toward the basement but toward the dining room, toward the one place in the lodge where she has learned to hide when loud noises come. Under the mahogany table, in the shadows where no one looks. Carlo does not notice. His focus is fractured by the assault, by the need to evacuate, by the assumption that a child would not run away from safety. He reports to Matteo, she's secure, and Matteo believes him because Carlo has never given him reason not to. Get the vehicle started, Matteo orders. We move in 60 seconds. The evacuation unfolds with the efficiency of men who have rehearsed this scenario 1,000 times in their minds. Matteo fires a final burst that forces the attackers to take cover, then he vanishes through the side exit where two black SUVs idle in the driveway, their engines running like mechanical heartbeats. Within 90 seconds, the vehicles accelerate down the mountain road, and the lodge falls silent except for the wind and the whisper of falling snow. Under the table, Lily curls into the smallest shape she can make, her hands over her ears, her heart beating so fast she thinks it might break. She has not seen her father leave. She has not understood that she was left behind. 218 miles south, on the edge of North Philadelphia, Sofia Winters is driving her 1998 Honda Civic through the beginning of the same blizzard. Her hands grip the steering wheel so hard her knuckles have gone white. Her ribs scream with every breath. There is blood on her waitress uniform, dried and dark, from where Tyler's rings found her body when she made the mistake of telling him she was leaving. She has $2 in her wallet. She has a daughter at home with her mother who will not understand why Mama is not coming back to work her shift. She has a hospital bill on the kitchen table that says $22,000 in red marker, circled and underlined, with a deposit deadline of 14 days from now. She has a daughter named Emma who is 6 years old and whose heart does not beat the way hearts are supposed to beat, and who will die without the surgery that costs more money than Sofia can make in 5 years of double shifts. But right now, those things exist in the part of her mind that has learned to compartmentalize. Right now, she is only trying to survive the next 60 seconds. The car begins to slide on the mountain road. Sofia pumps the brake the way the mechanic once told her to do, but the physics of ice and velocity do not care about the opinions of broke women in borrowed cars. The Civic slides sideways and then backward, and the guardrail that is supposed to keep her on the road simply gives way. The car hits the snowbank with a sound like a hammer striking metal. Steam rises from under the hood. The engine cuts out. In the sudden silence, the only sound is the wind and Sofia's own breathing, which comes in short, sharp gasps that hurt her ribs. She sits there for 10 seconds. 20. Then she unbuckles her seatbelt and pushes the door open, stumbling out into the blizzard. The snow is already 4 inches deep and falling harder. She cannot drive out of this. The road is empty, no cell service in these mountains, no cars passing in either direction. She is alone in a storm on a mountain road with $2 in her pocket and the knowledge that every minute she is not at the hospital is a minute closer to the deadline. Then she sees it. Through the veil of snow and darkness, there are lights. A building. A lodge, massive and made of stone, with warm yellow light pouring from its windows like an invitation. She runs toward it. Her shoes slip on the frozen ground. Snow clings to her uniform. The wind pushes against her like it is trying to send her back down the mountain, but she keeps moving because the alternative is to freeze to death on the side of a road where no one will find her until spring. The front door of the lodge is not locked. Sofia crashes through it at 11:08 p.m., collapsing to her knees on the marble foyer. Snow and blood and desperation drip from her onto the pristine floor. She is breathing so hard she cannot speak. Her ribs feel like they might splinter under her own gasping. Then she hears it. A small voice, trembling and very, very alone. "Please don't hurt me." Sofia's head snaps up. In the firelight from the great room beyond, she sees a little girl. 7 years old, maybe, with dark hair and her father's eyes. The child is standing beside the massive stone fireplace, staring at this bleeding stranger who has just burst through their door, and Lily's entire body is shaking like a leaf in a storm. Sofia forgets about the blizzard. She forgets about the $22,000. She forgets about her own pain. She moves slowly, deliberately, the way she has learned to move when Emma is having one of her episodes, when the child's damaged heart is racing and panic is setting in. "Hey," Sofia whispers, her voice trembling like a candle in the wind. "Hey, sweetheart. I'm not going to hurt you. I'm lost. My car crashed outside. I just need to stay warm for a little while. What's your name?" "Lily," the child whispers back. "Lily," Sofia repeats, as if the name is something sacred. She lowers herself to the ground slowly, carefully, each movement deliberate and calm even though her ribs scream with the effort. "I'm Sofia. I have a daughter too. She's younger than you. Her name is Emma." Lily's chin trembles. "Papa left. He went away. He said Carlo was taking me to the basement, but then I got scared and I ran and now Papa is gone and I don't know where he is." Sofia reaches out her hand, and after a moment that feels like an eternity, Lily takes it. The child's fingers are cold and small and frightened, and something in Sofia's chest breaks open like a dam, all the fear and exhaustion and helplessness pouring out of her in a wave so strong she thinks she might drown. "Come here," Sofia says. "Come sit with me by the fire. I'll tell you about Emma, and you can tell me about your papa, and we'll wait together." She brings Lily to the leather sofa facing the fireplace. She pulls a cashmere throw, worth more than everything Sofia owned, over both of them. Lily curls against her, and Sofia begins to hum. It is the same lullaby she sings to Emma on the nights when Emma's breathing becomes shallow and quick and terrifying. The wind howls outside. The fire crackles and pops. And upstairs, in the master bedroom, Sofia and Lily fall asleep together, the frightened child finally feeling safe, the desperate woman finally being still. At 2:14 a.m., the side door of the lodge opens quietly. Matteo steps inside, his suit torn at the shoulder, dried blood on his neck that belongs to someone else. Carlo and Nino flank him, both moving with the careful silence of men who have just finished something violent. The drive back from the engagement site took 40 minutes. The body disposal will take another 2 hours. They expect to retrieve Lily from the basement, to find her curled up on the cot where Carlo left her, to hold her and promise that Papa is home and everything is safe. Instead, Matteo stops dead in the entrance to the great room. The fire has burned down to embers. The room is bathed in orange light and shadow. And on the sofa, wrapped in his cashmere throw, a woman sleeps with his daughter against her chest. Sofia's head is tilted back. Her blonde hair, matted with blood and snow, falls across the armrest. Even in sleep, her body is tense. There are bruises blooming across her ribs where her torn uniform reveals skin. One arm is wrapped protectively around Lily, who sleeps with her thumb in her mouth and her cheek pressed against Sofia's heartbeat. Matteo's hand moves to his gun, but something stops him. Perhaps it is the tenderness of the gesture. Perhaps it is the way Sofia's breathing has synchronized with his daughter's, as if her own survival depends on keeping Lily breathing. Perhaps it is something older and deeper, something that whispers that this moment is different from every other moment of his life. He lowers the weapon slowly. Carlo's eyes go wide. Nino's mouth opens to speak, but Matteo raises one hand and they both fall silent. In 15 years of working for this man, they have never seen him stand and watch anyone sleep. They have never seen him stand and watch anything with that expression, that careful, hungry, terrified expression. Sofia's eyes flutter open. For a moment, she simply lies there, disoriented and confused by the unfamiliar ceiling and the expensive furniture and the 3 men in black standing 5 feet away. Then recognition crashes over her face, and she moves to stand, but her ribs scream and she gasps instead, freezing in place. "I'm sorry," she whispers, her voice cracking with pain and fear. "I didn't mean to stay. My car crashed, I didn't know anyone was here, I just needed to. Lily's arms tighten around her. Papa, the child says, not moving, not even opening her eyes fully. She sang to me. When you were gone and the loud sounds came, she sang and made the scary sound stop. Matteo's expression cracks like ice under pressure. He kneels beside the sofa, a motion that causes Carlo to step backward in shock, because Matteo Moretti does not kneel for anyone. He kneels beside Sofia and his daughter, and he reaches out one hand toward Sofia's face. His fingers are steady, scarred, deadly. But when he touches her cheek, it is the gentlest thing she has ever felt. You saved my daughter, he says, and his voice is different now. Not the smooth, controlled tone of a crime boss. Something raw. Something breaking. I don't understand, Sofia says. Where is your wife? Someone should be here with her, someone should. There is no wife, Matteo says quietly. There is only Lily. And she has been alone for 3 years. Carlo brings the first aid kit without being asked. Matteo opens it with hands that have just committed murder, and he cleans the blood from Sofia's temple with the same patience he showed Lily with the firewood. The gore soaks up blood that is still warm. His jaw tightens with each small sound of pain that escapes her. Nino watches from across the room, his mind working to understand what is happening. In 15 years, he has never seen this man touch another person like this. In 15 years, he has never seen Matteo Moretti show mercy to a stranger. Sofia hisses as the antiseptic touches an open cut. Who hurt you? Matteo asks. Sofia looks away. Please, he says, softer. Tell me. She breaks. The story pours out of her like something poisoned, like words that have been locked inside her body for so long that releasing them feels like bleeding. Tyler Brennan. The way he grabbed her throat and promised this time I'm going to finish it. The way the police told her they couldn't help her because Tyler's cousin is a sergeant in the division. The apartment she cannot go back to. The money she doesn't have. Then she pulls out the crumpled billing statement from her uniform pocket. The paper is soft from being read so many times, from being held in trembling hands at 3 a.m. when the fear of what comes next becomes unbearable. My daughter needs heart surgery, Sofia says, and her voice breaks on every word. Emma is 6 years old and her heart doesn't work the way it's supposed to. The deposit is $22,000. She needs it done within 14 days or she dies. I have been working double shifts for 6 months and I have saved $3,400. I need $22,000. I have $2 in my wallet. 2. She takes a breath that turns into a sob. My children haven't eaten in 3 days. I spent my last money on Emma's medications. I am a terrible mother. I cannot even feed my own child. Matteo goes absolutely still. The man who has built an empire on violence and fear and ruthlessness sits motionless as this broken woman sobs in front of him. His own daughter, well-fed and safe, watches from Sofia's lap with confusion and concern written across her small face. Something inside him, some wall that has stood for 15 years, since the night he watched his own father murdered, cracks open. He reaches out his hand, and for a moment it hovers in the air between them. Then he touches her cheek, wiping the tears away with his thumb. You are not a terrible mother, he says, and his voice breaks like glass. You are the woman who saved my child when you could barely stand. You ran to her, not away from her. You are the opposite of a terrible mother. Carlo's eyes go so wide they nearly leave his face. Nino takes an involuntary step backward. Matteo stands and pulls out his phone. His movements are fluid, purposeful, the movements of a man who has just made a decision that will reshape his entire world. First call, I need a pediatric cardiac surgeon at Children's Hospital. Mitral valve replacement. Patient is Emma Winters, age 6. I don't care what else is scheduled. Cancel it. And get me a room for a companion. Yes, tomorrow. I'm not asking when's convenient. I'm telling you when it's happening. Second call, wire $25,000 to Sofia Winters immediately. Full account. I'll send you the banking information. Third call, I want everything on Tyler Brennan. Full background. Associates. Patrol routes. Family connections. Police connections. Everything. I want a file on my desk in 2 hours. And Margaret Harrington. I want to know who she is and what she wants. I want it all. Sofia stares at him in disbelief. Why would you help me? She asks. I am nobody. I am a stranger who broke into your home. Matteo lowers his phone and kneels again. His eyes lock onto hers with such intensity that she cannot look away even though every instinct tells her to. My father was murdered when I was 19 years old, he says quietly. I was in a closet. Too weak to stop it. I watched, and I could do nothing. I spent 15 years building power so that I would never be weak again. I built an empire on that rage. But you ran toward danger for a child you did not know. You did not run toward power or money or safety. You ran toward love. His hand comes up and touches her cheek again. You are not nobody, Sofia. You are the woman who broke all my rules. Lily climbs into Sofia's lap and whispers something that stops the world. Can she stay, Papa? Can she be my mama? Matteo's eyes glisten, and when he blinks, a single tear traces the scar on his face. But before Sofia can respond, before she can ask the questions that are forming on her lips, Carlo's phone buzzes. He checks it, and his expression hardens. Boss, he says quietly. We have a problem. On the other side of Philadelphia, in a penthouse apartment on Rittenhouse Square, Margaret Harrington sits in silk pajamas watching video footage on her laptop screen. The footage shows Tyler Brennan at a diner at 7 p.m., showing a waitress's photograph to the staff. The waitress, Sofia Winters, who rejected Margaret's wealthy nephew at a charity gala last spring, who turned him down flat, who made Margaret's family look foolish in front of 200 witnesses. Margaret takes a sip of wine, and her smile is a blade wrapped in ice. Find her, she says into her phone. Find the waitress and find out where she's going. And when you do, make sure she disappears so thoroughly that no one remembers her name. Outside the lodge, the blizzard continues to fall. 36 hours later, at 4:15 in the afternoon, the surgeon emerged through the double doors of Children's Hospital with a smile that meant everything. Sofia collapsed. Her knees folded, her body gave way, and the only thing holding her up was Matteo's arm around her waist, solid and unmovable as stone. Thank you, she whispered, then again, louder, the words breaking like glass. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Emma was alive. The surgery had worked. The hole in her daughter's heart was sealed. Sofia's daughter would live to be 10 years old, 20, 50. She would graduate high school. She would fall in love. She would have a life that stretched forward into a future that, 24 hours ago, did not exist. Matteo held her steady while she wept, his hand pressing against the small of her back, his face unreadable except for the slight tightening around his eyes. Lily slept against Sofia's shoulder, her small fingers curled around a strand of Sofia's hair. In the waiting room, fluorescent lights hummed overhead. The clock on the wall ticked forward. Everything was ordinary. Everything was impossible. But in the parking lot below, rain hammered against concrete. November was ending the way November always does, cold, violent, relentless. Margaret Harrington sat in her black Mercedes SUV across the street, binoculars pressed to her eyes, her phone already dialing. She had been waiting since dawn. Watching. Planning. The waitress was inside the hospital. Vulnerable. Separated from the Mafia boss while he slept in an uncomfortable chair, while his guard was down. Find him, Margaret said into the phone, her voice smooth as poisoned honey. Find Tyler. Tell him the opportunity window is now. 1 hour. That is all he needs. In the parking lot, rain drummed against the hospital's concrete overhang like a countdown no one could hear. Sofia stood at the window of the fifth-floor waiting room, looking down at the parking lot below. Matteo had excused himself to make phone calls. Carlo and Nino stood like statues in the doorway, their eyes fixed on the corridor. She could see the Mercedes through the Rain Street glass, could see the shape of someone in the driver's seat, could see the glint of binoculars catching the pale afternoon light. Her stomach twisted. She did not recognize Margaret Harrington. She had never seen the woman's face. But something in her knew, the way animals know when they are being hunted. The way prey recognizes the predator's stare. Emma was recovering 2 floors below. Emma was alive. Emma was safe. But what if she was not? What if Tyler found her again? What if Margaret was not alone? What if this sanctuary of beeping monitors and kind nurses and Matteo's money and Matteo's power was temporary? What if Sofia's presence here was like blood in the water, drawing sharks from miles around? Lily stirred in her sleep. Sofia looked down at the small child resting against her chest, this little girl who had called her Mama, who had reached for her in the darkness. Lily was not Sofia's daughter. Not by blood. Not by law. But somewhere in the past 36 hours, biology had become irrelevant. Love did not wait for paperwork. The window was cold against her palm. Sofia could run. She could leave through the stairwell marked with the red exit sign glowing in the dimness. She could take Emma when they discharged her tomorrow morning, could vanish into the Greyhound stations and cheap motels where people disappeared so thoroughly that even the system could not track them. No more violence. No more men hunting in the rain. No more risk to a child who had already survived so much. She could vanish. Her hand reached for the door handle. Her fingers touched the cool metal. Her heart raced like a trapped animal, like a creature in a cage counting down the seconds until the lock opened. Then Lily shifted. Then Lily, still half asleep, whispered in that voice so small it barely existed, "Mama." Sofia's hand froze. Lily's eyes were not open. The child was dreaming. But she had reached up in that dream, had searched for Sofia's face, had called her Mama like it was the most natural word in the world. Something hardened in Sofia's chest. Not like a blade. Like the moment when molten metal cools into unbreakable steel. She was done running. She was done being hunted. She was done believing that love was something she did not deserve, something that would only bring pain to anyone foolish enough to offer it. She pulled her hand away from the door. Down in the parking lot, the first black SUV arrived. Then the second. Then the third. They emerged from the rain like dark ships cutting through fog, their headlights twin beams cutting the November gloom. Matteo's men materialized from the hospital's covered entrance, moving with the precision of soldiers who had rehearsed this exact scenario 1,000 times. 12 men in black tactical gear. 12 men with weapons they knew how to use. Carlo appeared in the doorway behind Sofia. His voice was a low growl. "Boss said stay here with the girls. Do not move. Do not open this door for anyone but him." Sofia nodded, but she moved to the window. Through the rain, she watched. Tyler Brennan emerged from a silver sedan with 2 men flanking him like soldiers. He was thinner than she remembered, his face gaunt, his eyes the color of watered-down fear. He had a gun in his right hand. He held it with no confidence, like a child holding a stick, like he did not fully believe it would work when he needed it to. Matteo walked toward him across the wet pavement. The men who loved Matteo moved like predators. Carlo reached Tyler in 3 strides. The gun came up. Carlo moved faster than movement should exist, a strike that came from nowhere and everywhere simultaneously. Tyler's arm twisted. The gun flew. His body flew forward, slamming face first into the pavement. Blood bloomed across his cheek, washing clean in the rain. Tyler screamed. The words came out broken and terrified. "I have protection. Police protection. You cannot touch me." Matteo leaned down. His voice carried through the parking lot, through the rain, cold and final as a judge's gavel. Your protection was arrested 30 minutes ago. FBI raided the precinct. Your cousins are in federal custody. You are alone, Tyler. Tyler's body went rigid. His hands trembled. His mouth opened but no words came, just sounds like an animal understanding, finally, that the trapdoor had closed. Nino dragged him toward an unmarked van. Tyler's heel scraped concrete. His screams cut through the rain like something from another world, a dimension of pain where consequences finally arrived. But the van never left the parking lot. The Castellano family emerged from the shadows where they had been waiting, 6 men, maybe 7, armed and moving with the coordination of hyenas who had scented blood on the wind. Their underboss, a man with silver hair and a scar that split his face in half, stepped forward. His voice was calm, almost conversational. "This one's been a problem for everyone," the underboss said, looking at Tyler like he was a mistake someone else needed to fix. "We will handle it." Matteo stepped aside. He nodded to his men. The transfer happened in seconds. Tyler was transferred from one group of captors to another. His screaming took on a new, higher pitch, the sound of understanding that the devil you know has become the devil you do not, and the second devil is far worse. The Castellano van disappeared into the rain. Tyler Brennan was never seen again. Meanwhile, Margaret Harrington watched from her Mercedes as her hired weapon vanished. Her hands gripped the steering wheel. Her perfectly manicured fingers went white with pressure. She understood in that moment that she had miscalculated. That Tyler was not a tool that could be simply discarded. That the ecosystem of the underworld operated on laws she did not fully comprehend. She turned the ignition. The engine roared to life. She had made it 3 blocks when the FBI vehicle surrounded her, appearing like phantoms from nowhere, red and blue lights painting the rain in colors that meant arrest, meant prosecution, meant the end of everything she had built. Federal agents in vests and rain-soaked jackets pulled her from the driver's seat. She was on her knees on the pavement, mascara running in black rivers down her face, screaming about connections and lawyers and the fact that everyone she knew would hear about this. The agent reading her rights was polite, almost gentle, as he recited the charges. Conspiracy to commit murder. Wire fraud. Racketeering. The money from her charity foundation, the foundation that bore her mother's name, had been funneled through accounts in the Cayman Islands. Federal prison, 40 years minimum. Her face was on the news by 6 p.m. Every station in Philadelphia showed the photograph from her arrest, mascara running, jaw slack with shock, the face of someone who had finally understood that the world did not operate according to the rules she had assumed were universal. The news outlets dug deeper. Her business partnerships dissolved overnight. Her social standing evaporated like morning dew. Within 72 hours, Margaret Harrington was not a person anymore. She was a cautionary tale. Both villains destroyed. Neither by Matteo's hand directly. In the 5th floor waiting room, Sofia watched the red and blue lights dance across the rain-streaked glass. Matteo returned to her as the parking lot was being cleared, as the rain washed the blood away, as November released its hold on the city. He looked at her with eyes that had seen something change inside himself, something fundamental and irreversible. "It is finished," he said simply. "You are safe. Emma is safe. Lily is safe. No one will hunt you anymore." Sofia wanted to ask questions. She wanted to understand the mechanics of how the FBI had become involved, how the timing was so precise, how the world had rearranged itself so completely in a single afternoon. But she did not ask. Some things were better left in the rain, washed clean, forgotten. Instead, she took his hand. 1 week later, the rain had stopped. The Philadelphia sky hung gray and pregnant with the promise of snow, but for now the city breathed easy. Sofia sat in Matteo's private study on the 5th floor of his estate, a room lined with books she had never read and windows that overlooked neighborhoods where people like her used to live. Emma sat curled on a leather chair by the fireplace, her chest wrapped in fresh bandages, the pink scar on her sternum healing into something that looked almost like hope. Color had returned to her cheeks. Her breathing came easy now, no longer the labored pull of a heart working too hard. Lily refused to leave Emma's side. The two girls had become inseparable in the way that only children who had both been abandoned could become, their fingers intertwined, their whispered conversations creating their own small universe inside the vastness of the mansion. Matteo entered carrying 2 cups of coffee on a silver tray. He set one in front of Sofia without ceremony, the gesture so ordinary it broke something inside her. He sat across from her in a chair that probably cost more than the apartment she had lost, and for a moment neither of them spoke. The only sound was the crackle of the fireplace and Lily's soft laughter drifting from the next room where Emma was showing her drawings. "I do not know how to thank you," Sofia said finally. Her voice trembled like a candle in the wind. "You saved Emma's life. The surgery, the doctors, the care, everything. I will spend the rest of my life trying to repay you." Matteo shook his head slowly. "You saved Lily first," he said. His voice was deep and solid like an oath. "In that lodge, during the blizzard, when everything was chaos and danger, you held my daughter. You asked for nothing. You just acted. That is not something I see in my world. That is not something I have seen in 15 years. Sofia looked at her hands. They were clean now, but she could still feel the calluses from years of double shifts, the memory of counting coins in the dark. "What happens now?" she asked. "I have no apartment. No job. Tyler's associates might still come looking. There could be people who want to hurt me because of him, because of what he did." Matteo leaned forward, his elbows on his knees. "There will be no one coming," he said quietly. "That world is closed now. But to answer your question, I have a proposal for you, Sofia." He paused, gathering words the way a man who does not speak much emotion must gather them carefully. "Stay here. Not as a servant. Not as an obligation to repay a debt. As family. Stay in this house. Let Emma recover here where we can protect her. Let Lily have someone she trusts." "Matteo," Sofia began, but he continued. "Lily has not called anyone Mama since her mother died 3 years ago. But she calls you that. She runs to you first when she wakes from nightmares. She is not afraid anymore when you are near." He straightened, his eyes holding hers. "I am afraid if you leave, I will lose both of them." Sofia's eyes welled up, tears spilling onto her cheeks. "I am a waitress with $2 to my name," she whispered. "You are this." She gestured at the study, the mansion, the power and wealth surrounding them like armor. "I come from nothing. I have nothing. Why would you want me here? What could I possibly offer you?" Matteo's jaw tightened. When he spoke again, his voice broke slightly, a sound like ice cracking under pressure. "Because when I look at you, I do not see someone calculating what they can take from me. I do not see someone impressed by what I own or afraid of what I can do. I see someone who sees me as human. In 15 years, Sofia, I cannot think of another person who has looked at me that way. That is worth more than every dollar I have ever made. More than every man I command. More than every empire I have built." The words hung in the air between them like a prayer finally answered. Lily burst through the doorway, Emma behind her, both girls breathless with the energy of children who had found joy again. "Mama, come see what Emma drew." Lily grabbed Sofia's hand, her small fingers gripping with fierce certainty. "It is a picture of all of us. She drew you in the middle." Sofia looked at Matteo through her tears. She looked at Lily's hopeful face, at Emma standing in the doorway with color in her cheeks and tomorrow in her eyes. She nodded, unable to speak. Matteo smiled, a real smile, unguarded and warm, the kind of smile that transformed his face into something younger, something not yet hardened by loss. From the hallway, Carlo watched the scene unfold. He exchanged a look with Nino, the kind of look that carried 15 years of service and loyalty. "The boss has gone soft," Carlo muttered, shaking his head. Nino grinned. "No," he said. "He has gone human. That is different." 3 days later, the hospital discharge happened quietly, without the fanfare that usually accompanied Matteo Moretti anywhere. Emma held Sofia's hand as they walked down the corridor, Lily holding the other, Matteo walking beside them. The nurses waved goodbye, but the moment they stepped outside into the November air, photographers descended like a flock of crows, their cameras snapping with the urgency of men hunting a story they did not yet understand. The famous crime boss, the one whose face never appeared in photographs by choice, was being documented with a family. A woman and 2 children. The image sent through the wire services in minutes. By evening, the Philadelphia Inquirer ran the headline, "Moretti's Mystery Family." Television stations speculated. Social media erupted with theories. Who was the woman? Where did the children come from? Matteo did not care about optics anymore. He had spent 15 years building an empire on the foundation of his father's murder, on the rage of a 19-year-old boy who had watched his father collapse on a kitchen floor and decided that vengeance was the only language the world understood. But standing in that parking lot with Sofia's arm linked through his, with Emma's small hand in his, with Lily looking up at him with absolute trust, something shifted inside him. He realized that his father would not have wanted this. His father would not have wanted his son to spend decades drowning in darkness. His father would have wanted him to be happy. Sofia kissed Emma's forehead, then reached over and kissed Lily's too. Matteo watched, and for the first time since he was 19 years old, since the night his world had shattered on a kitchen floor, he felt peace. Not the absence of pain, that would come later. But the first quiet moment where the weight of the past did not crush every cell in his body. 6 months later, Sofia stood in the kitchen of Matteo's estate, making breakfast. Sunlight streamed through windows that overlooked a garden beginning to bloom. Emma and Lily stood on stools beside her, their small hands helping crack eggs into a ceramic bowl, their laughter filling the space like music. The scar on Emma's chest had faded to a thin line. She moved freely now, without the fear of her heart failing her. Lily had stopped having nightmares. She slept through the nights, secure in the knowledge that when she woke, Sofia would be there. Matteo entered through the kitchen door, the morning Philadelphia light catching his dark hair. He wrapped his arms around Sofia from behind, kissed the temple where the scar from that November night had finally faded. When she turned to face him, there was no hesitation in her eyes anymore. No doubt. Just certainty. "I love you," she said. "I love you too," he replied, and he meant it with the totality of a man who had been given a second chance at something he had stopped believing existed. "I will spend every day making sure you never regret the decision to stay." Sofia Winters entered that mountain lodge with $2 in her pocket, 3 broken ribs, and a desperation so complete it had stolen her ability to cry. She sobbed in front of the most dangerous man in Philadelphia, admitting her failures, her inability to save her own daughter, her sense of being utterly and completely worthless. And Matteo Moretti, the crime boss who had built an empire on rage and vengeance, broke down in tears because her vulnerability reminded him that beneath the scar tissue of his own trauma, he was still human. She did not ask for his money. She did not manipulate or scheme or calculate the distance between his power and her poverty. She simply loved his daughter when no one else was there to do it. She simply acted with the instinct of a mother protecting a child, not knowing that child belonged to the man who would become her salvation. Tyler Brennan and Margaret Harrington tried to destroy her, but they underestimated what happens when you threaten someone a mafia boss considers family. Justice came not from Matteo's hands but from the very systems and rivals they thought would protect them. Tyler disappeared into the darkness he had served. Margaret lost everything in the light of federal prosecution, her empire crumbling in 72 hours, her name becoming a cautionary tale whispered in country clubs. But Sofia, the waitress with nothing, gained everything. Not because she manipulated a powerful man, but because she showed him that power without love is just another prison. Matteo learned that redemption was not something to be earned through violence. It was already waiting in the eyes of a woman who saw him as human. Darkness cannot drive out darkness. Only love can do that. If this story moved you, like this video right now. Share it with someone who needs to remember that kindness is never wasted, that love changes everything. Subscribe and turn on notifications. Comment below, Have you ever helped someone without expecting anything in return, only to have it change your life? Tell us your story. We read every single one. Thank you for watching. We will see you in the next story. Goodbye.